Let's take a look over on the right side where we have our setup icon. This is where you can customize what your incident monitoring task is showing and some of the behavior. If you have multiple monitors on your workstation, you can open several incident monitoring tasks, position them in different monitors, and customize what is being displayed in each one. From the Setup menu, you can choose to show both the list and map, like we are here, or just the list in a task, or just the map. Only one of these three selections can be active. Below that, you can select where you want the list to be positioned. By default, we have it on top, but if you want to put the map on top and the list on the bottom, you can do that. The Incident Details pane can also be turned on or off for the particular task you are in by checking or unchecking this option. In earlier versions of Mission Control, this was called the dashboard, so if you see this option referring to the dashboard, it's the same thing. If you look closely in the middle of the border between the Details pane and the left side of the task, you'll see 4 dots. Click and hold on the 4 dots and drag left or right to resize the Details pane. You can also do this on the border between the list and the map to give more space to one or the other. Let's take a look at a quick example where I have a 2-monitor setup and I want to view my map on one screen and have my list and details pane on the screen next to it. I'm going to show both my screens in the video, which is going to make any details on them hard to see, but I'll show you what we're selecting on the bottom here. First, I would need to put my security desk in full screen mode by pressing F11. Each screen should have its own security desk window. If one of your monitors does not have a security desk window, or you want to keep one monitor from being used by the security desk, click on the Home button, go into Options, and in the General tab, look under the Full Screen Monitors section. You can check or uncheck the monitors listed there to let the security desk know which ones to use when you go into full screen mode. Now, going back to my example, I have my main monitor on the left here, and I have a second security desk window running on the right, waiting for a task to run. This is still all the same security desk application running, but it's running in 2 windows. On the left side is where I do most of my work, so I want to have my list and details pane there. In my incident monitoring task, I'm going to click on the setup icon and select List Only and keep the Show Incident Details pane selected. The list position is relative to the map, so it doesn't matter if I have it on the top or bottom. Using left or right will squish it to one side, so I'm not going to make any changes there. You'd really only use the left or right position if you have an extra wide monitor or only want to display some columns. I can use the handle on the border between the list and the details pane to resize it now, so I have an easier time reading the procedure step or the latest activity. Now, on the monitor on the right side, I'm going to put my map there so I can see where things are happening and if anything new pops up. In the security desk window, I'm going to choose the incident monitoring task. Once that comes up, I'm going to go to the setup icon for that task, and I'm going to select Map Only and uncheck the Show Incident Details pane selection. Now I can easily track everything on the right monitor and select what I want to work on and respond to incidents on my left monitor. Let's bring this back to one screen again to go over the last 2 sections in the Setup menu. The maps you're using in the Mission Control Incident Monitoring task are the same ones you can view in the Monitoring or Maps task and are not configured specifically for this task. So there may be some objects on the map that you don't need to see while you're working on incidents. To reduce the clutter, you can select or deselect layers of the map to add or remove entire types of objects. You can select layers from the Setup menu, or you can right-click on an empty space on the map. The first time you go into the Layers menu, everything is checked by default, but you can uncheck things you don't need to see or won't be interacting with. You can use the Select All or Select None buttons on the bottom of the list, and to make it easier to see, you can check the Hide Empty Layers box to only see what types of objects you have on the map. For example, if I have alarms on my map, but I know I'll never need to see the status of the alarms or perform any actions on them, I can uncheck my Alarm layer. In the Setup menu, you can also bring up an Options window to manage how the task behaves. The first section is for incident monitoring. The minimum priority in notification tray selection is used to restrict when the security desk will warn you about a new incident. By default, it is set to low, so any incident that is a low priority or higher will show up in our little lightning bolt icon in the notification tray. There's nothing below low, so that means everything will show up. If you're working on something important or are supervising a team and don't want to be bothered by anything that isn't a high or critical priority, you can select high from the drop-down menu. The low and medium priority incidents will still show up on your list and on your map, but you won't get a notification about it. Below that, you have a switch to turn the notification tray alerts off completely if you want to. Now, when we were looking at the 2 incident monitoring tasks before, if I selected an incident on my map on the right, it would show that incident as selected in my list on the left and update the details pane with that incident information. We can change that behavior in the next series of checkboxes. To have them run completely independently, so you can have multiple incidents selected in multiple tasks, you can uncheck the Synchronize Incident Monitoring Tasks option. You can also have it only partially synchronize things using the 3 options below that. The incident that is selected can be independent, the filters applied to the list can be different for each task, and any list column sorting, grouping, and selection can be done differently on each task as well. Let me tell you, this is a multitasker's dream right here. If you're using a georeferenced default map, one that is linked to a map server and uses very accurate global positions, you can use the Show All Incidents on the default map to have the incidents show up on that georeferenced map. If this is unchecked, they'll only show up on the area they're triggered on. The areas will be used if the default map is not georeferenced as well. When the system administrators create maps, they tell the system how many zoom levels they want to have. Basically, how many steps to go from zoomed out completely to zoomed in completely. The initial map zoom level for selected incidents is a percentage of how zoomed in you want the map to be when you select an incident. By default, it's set to 100%, so it's completely zoomed in, but you can change this to a lower value if you want to have a better idea of what is located around the incident on the map. For example, if I change this to 50 or 50%, it will zoom in halfway, and I can see what other objects are around the incident on the map, like cameras or doors. If your map does not have a lot of zoom levels, making small changes to this value may not show any change when you select an incident. Just make larger changes to the value in this case. Since the Incident Details pane is where you'll be looking to get most of your information, we've given it an independent font size in the options. The changes are immediate and do not require a restart. We have also included a font size for the incident list too, which can be found right below the Details pane font size. There are 2 ways of viewing an incident in the security desk. The first way is to click once on the incident in the list or on the map to bring it up in the Details pane. The second is to double-click on the incident in the list or the map, and this will open it up in a monitoring task. You can still respond to the incident procedure steps and things like that, but you'll have your full tile canvas to work with. You can use the tiles to view cameras or other entities you drag in from the area view. Our next group of options are defaults related to opening an incident in the monitoring task. If the first option, Append Map to Incident Content, is checked, the map with the incident on it will be loaded into one of the monitoring task tiles. The next option, Append Source Entities without Video Stream, can be used to limit the display of the entities that were used to trigger the incident. With this option enabled or checked, all the source entities will be shown, but if you only want to see cameras or entities that have an associated camera, you can uncheck this option. This can help reduce the clutter in your tiles when an incident is opened in the monitoring task. In case you bring up an incident that is in the new state in the monitoring task, you can have it automatically changed to In Progress by having the Automatically Change Incident State option checked. The regular monitoring task has a few functions to make viewing the canvas easier, including hiding the controls and hiding the area view. When bringing up an incident, you can select if you want the area view automatically hidden or not using the next option. This is on by default. If you have multiple screens, you can also force the monitoring task to always come up in one of your screens or monitors. Each screen is given a unique ID. To find out the IDs of your screens, click on the Home button, click on the options on the left, then select the Visual tab on the left side of the pop-up window. In the In Tray section, look for the Monitor ID option and change the drop-down next to it to Show. Save the changes, and you should now see a little screen icon in the notification tray of each task with the monitor number inside it. The monitor IDs generally do not change, so you can show it, note the IDs for your monitors, and hide this tray option again if you'd like. Moving on to the next section in the options, this is where we can set up some default behavior for exporting incidents. Here you can select if you want the current view of your map exported as an image file, export any snapshots from events that triggered the incident, video from events as well, or related videos. Related videos are from cameras that have been associated with the incident but were not used to automatically trigger the incident. You can also select if you want to compress the output, which means it creates a zip file with everything in it and puts it in your vault. If you choose to zip the contents, you can also choose to delete the original files once the zip file has been created, just to clear up some space. When you export an incident, it creates a handy but not very readable XML file. Great for computers, not so great for humans. So you can also create a second file in either a PDF or HTML format using the Additional Export Format drop-down menu. PDF files are easy to distribute, and HTML files open up in web browsers. Both will show the same information. It's really up to you to decide which one you want to share. You can also set up the video export details below that, like how many seconds before the event to use in the playback offset, and the duration of the video. These are all your default settings that you're configuring, but when you do the actual export, you can change these values for the individual export you're doing if you'd like. The last section is to set up how you would like to see your Details pane sections. There are 8 sections to the Details pane, including the Reminder section, which may not always be present. If you do not want to see a section at all, uncheck the section in the Display column. The order of the sections can be changed as well. Click on a section name and use the arrows on the right to move the section up or down in the list. This order will be used in your Details pane. Don't forget to hit Apply if you've made any changes, or hit Cancel if you want to go back to the way it was before the modifications. That's the end of the interface tour, but we'll be taking a closer look at some of the things we covered in the List and Details panes a little later on.